Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. We have a fun 11-game slate tonight on Wednesday night, a bunch of marquee matchups, and this one we're taking a look at Boston playing host to the Utah Jazz. A couple best bets we like in this one. Nate does have his great article up on playpicks.com with some best bets and player props in there for you. And make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Got a couple, one extra game video actually for you today, so 3 game videos that we're bringing you, as well as that player props video we love to bring you each and every weekday. Make sure you head to thelines.com, check out who's in and out of those lineups all the way up until game time, as well as checking out our odds checker, making sure you're getting the best juice available on those odds all across the NBA tonight. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's jump into it.
Yeah, the Celtics opened -5. I saw it go up a little bit, and now it's down to -4.5. Kind of surprised, honestly. I thought it would continue to creep up as people hit the Celtics and target the Jazz during a 6-game road trip that they're in the middle of. But right now you're getting some pretty good value at Boston -4.5, the best team in the NBA since the end of January, as we all well know. We have 10 other games to look at on the slate tonight, though. The Knicks +7.5 at Charlotte. Hornets have won 5 straight. Knicks coming off of a loss last night. Kings +6 at Pacers with a 235 total there. The Hawks, who just beat those Knicks, -5 at Detroit. Warriors, coming off a loss in Orlando, are +7 as they stay in Florida at Miami. Nets -2 at Grizzlies. We break that game down for you. Kyrie and KD back in action. The Magic are -2 at the Thunder. The Suns are -1 at Minnesota, which has been the hottest team since the All-Star break. We will break that one down for you in our extra game video. Rockets +10 at the Mavs. Will be without Luka. The Sixers -7 at the Lakers with Harden and Embiid expected to return. And then Spurs -10 at the Blazers. Boston, you know the numbers by now, I think. Since the All-Star break, 11-2, 9-1 in March. The thing is, they've had the best defensive rating by a long shot since the end of January. That's been the story, but it's the offense that's taken off lately. I mean, since the break, a 121.3 offensive rating. Basically the best in the league, basically tied with the Wolves. Same thing with the net rating since the break. Tatum leading the charge, of course, 32.5 points, 5 assists with a 125 individual offensive rating in that span. And I mean, as they kind of settle into the fact that they're going to get stops, they've slowed down the pace and just been hyper efficient, has Boston, knowing that nobody really has a one-on-one answer for Tatum, and they can just play off that instead of this weird herky-jerky thing that we talked about the whole first half of the season where it was my turn, your turn, Tatum, Brown. It's like, let's just play through our best player who's now figuring out the game at the age of 24. And yeah, the C's extremely efficient lately and extremely locked in when they've played good teams. They have these 2 blip losses to the Pistons and Pacers during their hot stretch, but 14-1 straight up against teams in playoff position, 11-3-1 against the spread in that span. So while they've lost 4 straight against Utah, I think that this is more of a situation of, having that hyper focus again. And at home, Boston has just been lights out defensively all season, really. Number 1 in paint points allowed, number 1 assists allowed, 3rd in efficiency, and 4th in terms of free throws attempted. 6th best 3-point defense is probably the biggest key here because Utah scores the highest percentage of their points from deep on the road because Utah has won these last 3 games against Boston by hitting 21 threes at a 45% clip with a 133 offensive rating. And it's interesting that they score the highest percentage of unassisted threes, a lot of Donnie Mitchell dribble and pull up, and the 3rd highest percentage of 2s unassisted. So Boston's ability to limit that might not be as effective. That's kind of why I'm zigging towards the over here, whereas the numbers seem to be setting a really low total because of how good Boston's been defensively over a longer span. And the fact that Utah has actually gone under in 6 straight road games. However, you look at their last, 11 road games with a 118 defensive rating, and they've gone 5-2 to the over when they've played teams above 500 in that span. Those games averaging about 223. So, I mean, some of it is just a total being set very high when they play another fast-paced team, a team that doesn't have this reputation defensively. But the Celtics offense, I think, kind of offsets that. So really, what I prefer is taking the Celtics team total at 111 rather than taking the overall team total. And I like the Celtics -4 just fine, but I think you can tease it down to a pick 'em or a -1 and tease that total down to 214 and feel very confident about the Celtics scoring enough to get barely over that and winning yet another game against a contender.
Yeah, that all adds up. I think Utah's defense is really, it's the combo of what you said. Utah's defense, on the road, and then Boston's just complete, resurgence on offense as well. They've maintained that defense. I mean, it's a little bit worse at home at the All-Star break than it's been, for the majority of the season at home. I mean, that defensive rating since the All-Star break up at about 109 at home since the All-Star break, but still, like you said, I mean, it's still a very, very good defensive rating, and they've chipped in by upping that offensive rating a ton since that point in time as well. And things really seem to be clicking. I mean, who would have thought a first-round pick for Derek White was going to really revamp this team? It was probably just as much the subtraction of Dennis Schroeder, who definitely did not help that offense as well, but everything just clicking much differently. And really, at this point, when you've got 6'4" Marcus Smart, 6'5" Derek White in your backcourt, and then your forwards are 6'10" Jason Tatum and 6'7" Jaylen Brown, you're gonna be able to match up well, pretty much with anybody, even a team like Rudy, that has Rudy Gobert, where he's done really, really well against the Celtics. Unsurprisingly, I mean, they've had problems with centers for the last 3 seasons or so, have the Celtics. So it's not surprising that he's averaged 17 and 12 in his last 3 against Boston. But what's very, very interesting, aid Utah earlier in the season in December against centers. They were actually giving up the second fewest points per game and the third fewest rebounds per game to centers. So Robert Williams, Al Horford doing their thing a lot more so than they were. Kudos to Brad Stevens. I mean, he came in, he got a general manager job right away. That seemed kind of weird that he got promoted after a bad season as a head coach. But it was really him just going, I'm so tired of watching these guys that I want on my team go away from me and getting guys like Dennis Schrader that I need to revamp this offense and this entire roster. And he has, in a way that they're now an actual contender in that defense and that offense. I think it's a huge part in due to Derek White, who is not shooting well from 3 by any means, but his ability to be another slasher and ball handler who can get to the rim as a big guard, coming off of, playing again off of Tatum and Brown, has been so key for them. And, like I was saying about Utah, just turning to them and their lack of defense since the All-Star break, really surprising numbers for them in terms of giving up the 6th most second chance points to their opponent. Their defensive rating is down to about 115 since the All-Star break on the road. And then those opponent paint points, which is wild. I mean, they're only giving up the 4th. They're giving up the 4th least amount of paint points are the Jazz, but the Celtics are giving up the 5th least. In that time, and as you mentioned, at home, the least amount of points there. So I think the fact that they're guarding the 3 and they're guarding the paint is really all you need to know about why they're able to defend and beat Utah tonight. I do like the over a bit more just because of that. The resurgence, as we mentioned, on offense for the C's and that lack of defense for the Jazz. But I also prefer just taking their team total, as you mentioned, over any of the rest of this, which is why we're saying C's all over the place tonight, because we feel a lot more comfortable with their ability to score points rather than the Jazz tonight, who I don't know if they're going to come along for the ride or not, especially with the way that the C's have been shutting down the 3-point line and everything going through centers lately.
Yeah, it's going to be all on Donnie Mitchell, basically. I mean, there's no other way to score against the Celtics team reliably. And it's just such a stark difference between home and road for both these teams, in the sense that they might have 2 of the best home courts in the league at this point. I mean, when the Celtics are good, that Garden is very small and very, very loud, and they feed off of it. A defensive team like this, Utah, the same situation when they're at home, but on the road, they've lost 13 of their last 20, again, with that 117 defensive rating, and lost 8 of their last 12 against playoff teams on the road. They have a negative 1.3 net rating on the roads since the break, score 5 points per game fewer. There's reasons to be scared about them scoring, that is, but not necessarily the Celtics, especially with Tatum scoring 28 with a 120 offensive rating his last 5 versus the Jazz. He had 37 in that shootout loss in Utah, which was kind of a low point on the season for the Celtics early December.
Yeah.
And you credit Brad Stevens, but really it's Ime Udoka who was turning it around before they even added Derek White. It was a small, kind of tweak to a degree. I mean, the players have just finally responded to him. They're finally, goes back to that kind of thing about sharing the ball, playing off your best player, and buying into the defensive scheme, which has suddenly turned them into a vulnerable team down low to the best team down low, a team that you cannot challenge at the rim. And Donnie Mitchell, while he's had 34 and 36 his last 2 home games against Boston, 21 and 11 on a rough 9 for 31 field goal shooting his last 2 in Boston. So, and the more I think about it, I think the Celtics -4 and -4 or 5 is just a really good bet here, as long as they don't get into clutch time, which I don't think they'll even get there. I think they will win this one handily as long as Donovan Mitchell doesn't have like an out of body experience. And we've seen when he does that, like right before the break against the Lakers, the Jazz can still collapse late because they don't have Bojan Bogdanovic. We forgot to mention that off the top. So missing maybe their second most crucial scorer, and there's just not much else they're going to find in terms of being able to exploit Boston's defense right now.
Yeah, no, I concur with that. And you look at Boston since the All-Star break, mentioning clutch time. Yeah, it's not very good. But you've also only seen in their last 15, 3 of those clutch games that go 3 of those games go into the clutch time at home.
Yeah, 13 total
minutes, blowing everybody out.
Home or road. So yeah, not much clutch. But they haven't really been challenged. Yeah,
exactly. And on the road, none of those in the 15, they're blowing teams out. They have the best net rating in the first half since the All-Star break as well. It's something to just look up. I wanted to look up just because I started thinking, how come they're not playing clutch time at all? Why is it that every single time I turn them on, it's like 61-40 with the middle of the second quarter right now? That's just been their MO as of late. If you do want to look at, some player performance doubles as well to just get that down a bit in terms of that line, just get the money line for Boston, but still bank on a player to play really well. I mean, Jason Tatum is, as you mentioned, has had that incredible offensive rating against them, dating back to last season, averaging 30 points, 5 boards, 4 assists. So really filling up the stats all over the place. His points is high. I mean, 30 plus and a win is plus 186. And it's not something that I would shoo away too quickly, as he's been averaging that against them anyway. His home stats averaging that as well. And I think he can easily get those 30 points, as we do like them to get over 111 and a half tonight for the Celtics, which gets you at -105 on DraftKings. I think that's one of our favorite bets in this game, and then the C's to pull it out. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. You can check out all 3 game videos we have up for you today and that player props video. And until we see you next, happy betting.